forgive you yet, and I need you to hear that and not make it about your feelings. Dove said okay. That was apparently the end of the call. 4 minutes total. Remy told me she sat in her car afterward for 20 minutes and just breathed. She said it was the first time in 3 years that the weight of carrying that secret wasn't on her shoulders anymore. Dove called me last. It was a Saturday morning, and Perry was making breakfast in my kitchen when my phone rang. I answered, and Dove said, I need to talk to you. I said okay. She said, I know what I've been doing. I know it's a pattern. I know I hurt Gage and Remy, and I know I tried to do it to you. She paused. I didn't fill the silence. She said, Perry seems like a really good guy, and I'm sorry I tried to get between you. I said thank you. She said, are we okay? I said no, not yet. But you're doing the right thing by calling, and if you actually stick with therapy and actually change how you treat people, we can get there. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, that's fair. We hung up. Perry set a plate of eggs in front of me and said, how'd it go? I said she apologized. He said, do you believe her? I looked at him, at this man who didn't rescue me or fight my battles, but stood next to me while I fought my own. And I said, I don't know yet, but I believe she's scared, and scared is the first step before honest. Perry nodded and sat down with his coffee. Gage texted me a month later with a photo. It was him and Lennox at a farmer's market, both holding coffee cups. The caption said slow and steady. Remy's husband told her he was glad everything was finally out in the open. He said the New Year's incident had been eating at him for 2 years, and he'd felt guilty for not telling Remy sooner. He said he'd rehearsed how to bring it up at least a dozen times and always chickened out because he was afraid Remy would blame him or think he'd encouraged it. Remy told him she wished he had told her, but she understood why he didn't. She said Dove made everyone afraid of the fallout. That was her real power, not charm, fear. My mom started going to therapy herself. She told me on a Sunday phone call that it was long overdue. She said she had a lot to unpack about why she spent 15 years choosing the path of least resistance instead of protecting her other children. She said her therapist asked her to list every time she watched Dove hurt someone and chose not to intervene. She said the list took 2 full sessions. She said she couldn't finish it without stopping to cry 3 separate times. I told her I was proud of her for doing the work. She said, don't be proud of me yet. I haven't earned it. I'm just finally starting. Dove has been in therapy for 2 months now. She came to Easter dinner and sat at the far end of the table from Perry. She was polite. She was quiet. She didn't touch anyone. She didn't flirt. She complimented Remy's dress and then helped clear the plates without being asked. At one point during dinner, Lennox said something funny and the whole table laughed. I watched Dove's face. She started to laugh too, then caught herself and looked down at her plate, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to participate yet. It was awkward and stilted and nothing like the Dove I'd grown up with, but it was real. Gage noticed it too. After dessert, he caught my eye across the table and gave me a small nod, the kind that says I see it. Let's give it time. After dinner, Perry and I were loading dishes into my car and he said, she's trying. I said, yeah. He said, that's something. He closed the trunk and leaned against it next to me. I said, do you know what I keep thinking about? He said, what? I said Lennox was at that table tonight, sitting next to Gage, laughing. And Dove didn't say a word about it. Didn't compliment Gage's taste in women. Didn't find a reason to sit next to Lennox's chair. Didn't test a single boundary. Perry said that's not nothing. I said no, it's not. I leaned against the car and looked up at the sky and thought about every family dinner where I'd watched Dove operate and felt helpless. Every time Remy looked away. Every time Gage swallowed his anger. Every time my mom changed the subject. Every time our dad stared at his plate and waited for it to pass. 15 years of silence that cost Gage a relationship, cost Remy her peace of mind, and cost our family the version of itself that should have existed all along. All it took was one person willing to ask the question out loud. Some families break because nobody talks. Ours almost broke because everybody talked around the one thing that needed to be said.